Okay. Welcome to the June 24th edition of the CPS Policy and Equity Committee meeting. Thanks everyone for being here, and if you have comments for hearing of the public, I see Ben and whoever else up there, it doesn't look like anybody, please raise your hand and we will address you. So, all right, well, let's just dive right in. We have a chunky agenda. We have until 10:30, of course, and we can go a little longer if need be or less if need be. And thanks to my committee member, Ms. Bolton, for letting me mess with the date and the administration. I appreciate y'all. Last weekend was a special weekend for me and my son, and so thanks so much for letting me move this around. So number one, the Cincinnati Digital Academy. Unfortunately, I missed our last meeting. God, thanks again for that, for the grace on that. My son again and I were both very sick. But we had a presentation from the Cincinnati Digital Academy, and we discussed some enrollment issues. And so is there any update on anything regarding that, Mr. Ray?
Yeah, I think the way we closed out, we are in discussions with Cincinnati Digital to change some procedures related to their enrollment. In particular, Principal Rosier talked about having a little more organized in terms of, he accepts really all students that into digital, but doing it on a quarter or semester as opposed to this sort of free transferring back and forth, which creates a lot of, it's hard to track credits, and it creates chaos, not just for their school, but for our other schools. So we are working on procedures. No recommended updates to policies.
Cool. But it sounds like it was a good conversation and will bear some kind of fruit.
Yeah.
Cool. Great. Ms. Bolton, do you have any comments on that?
Just want to continue to pursue the idea that one of the issues that Chair raised was the us going statewide. Right. And we would really like to know how that kind of policy takes place as well.
Oh, for the open enrollment statewide? Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
thanks. I got it. Thank you, Rob.
So that is, I think, something we'd like to see. And I don't know what that would entail statewide, law-wise. I know would it require us to put anything in policy. I think that would be of use.
Yeah, so we're already an open enrollment district, so students theoretically could or are already enrolling from out of district. I think we have not, we certainly, I don't think as a district have made a push for out of. So that would be one change. Right,
and I think that's something that probably should be in the minutes that this committee, at least for these several months, as an offshoot of the open enrollment discussion, any enrollment. Because I know actually the committee is somewhat divided about open enrollment, but we had some consensus about open enrollment as it pertained to CDA. And so I think that would be great. And then maybe that's a message to the superintendent as well, that should be a marketing strategy when they feel able to do it or when they think the product is ready for introduction, whether that's the beginning of this school year or I would hate to wait till the next school year. But it's, maybe there's certain things you can do beginning in January or something. I know that's been part of the discussion about talking about an answer when people are saying, well, we have time to get a bus fleet ready. How about January?
Yeah.
So that would be of interest to me. I would like to resurface the dialogue we had almost 3 years ago now, and that was an actual name for CDA.
Oh my God. Did we not, sorry, did we not approve Gilligan?
No.
Oh, yeah, so we do need to bring that up. I thought it was just, to be perfectly frank, and this is not my fault, I thought it was just like a delay in the actual renaming. I thought we had approved that it was the...
Somebody better search.
Research it?
Yeah, let's check that out. Thank you, Ms. Bolton.
John J. Gilligan.
Thank you.
And I know that
Thank you.
I know I've been a big spokesperson about, we have an awful lot of, Caucasian males, but in naming new things, so we wanted to be able to emphasize a little bit more, not only minority, but also we are very undernamed for women. But in this case, a statewide effort, a hero from World War II, a man that was governor and then decided to serve on the local school board. He was by profession a professor and teacher, and a very popular Democrat and Republican at the same time on most issues. I do think we need to resurface that, or at least find out what the status is. The man deserves it. And I just calling something Cincinnati, and I know staff resisted negatively at CDA, but that they're now a small portion of the staff that's there now. And I just think that it's what we do. So if we can kind of put that in.
Yeah, I think that's right. I'm glad you brought that up, because the last time we were talking about this, it was in my brain. I didn't say it out loud. But yeah, Governor Gilligan, I think, certainly deserves it. And I remember when Miss Mitchell was here, and we were talking about reinventing CDA during the COVID, there was a lot of excitement about, oh, this would be a great way. And then we can tell the family, hey, it's going to be this big unveiling with Gilligan. So yeah, let's do that. And then also, I like this marketing idea, this marketing push when we're ready for prime time, whatever, of January. I mean, like you said, Mr. Hoying, get with the superintendent, maybe that. I think January is fair. Fall would be better, but I think January is fair.
Right.
And then especially if we're going to like a quarterly or semester type of thing, then that works
which is
too.
What the legal beagles are working on.
The legal beagles. That's the new. We're gonna create a new policy. We're gonna change the. While it's just
legal beagle.
Does anyone else know?
Legal beagle.
Anyone else know it's just you and me today?
If they did, the superintendent would be here. The treasurer definitely would be here.
President's here.
But, he's not even present.
So, he has to raise his
hand.
He has to raise his hand. And we have to tell Rob.
I'm watching very. I'm watching very.
No, mute him. Mute him.
Mute him now.
Gonna be okay. All right. Cool.
No, because we usually spend money when we're together.
Oh, boy. Yeah, we do. So are we good there for now? I think.
Yes.
Okay. Great.
I don't have any reason. Oh, do I, Mike and Eve? I mean, no reason to be concerned, right?
No, nothing.
Not at all.
No, you have no, Ben. You're fine.
That's what I figured, right? That there's no concern.
I think Carolyn's listening in because she started to now vote against whatever our minutes are. So I think she's got us covered too.
Unreal.
I think we're controlled enough. We're good.
Yeah, we're good. We got Dan here. Don't worry about us.
Oh yeah, well he's not such a good influence.
Well, Stephanie. That's right. All right. Well, the next one, policy. This has sort of led on this issue, so I'm going to kick it to her if she doesn't mind on this board member compensation piece.
Yes. Oh, thank you.
Yep.
This was a reasonable thing that was brought to the board's attention, and it is about reimbursement, compensation, if you will, about mileage. And a member that brought this to us is a newer member, but more particularly had been really keeping a serious and good campaign promise, which was visiting schools. And indeed, it has done a monumental job doing that.
Yeah.
And actually, in the state, the OSBA people, the Ohio School Board Association people, have a more expansive view of what we're allowed to do or not allowed to do than we do. So this might cause us to review some parts of our protocol, but at least initially, my own opinion has been, and I think seemed like it was where the conversation went when the board itself discussed this on Board Matters last month or whenever that was, that it probably goes to the fact that you can only be reimbursed for mileage if it is a board sanctioned event. So, example, the board has to actually assign us to go somewhere. That's why we're able to do it when we, let's say, go to Columbus to represent the board, or get training, or we go to convention or symposiums or whatever. That's when we are actually able to use anything that even remotely looks like a credit card or some sort of expense account. And that's when we get reimbursed for mileage if indeed we're driving our own vehicle. I think that's the way to do it, because to the point, and especially in the new superintendent's efforts, I think, to kind of reinforce the structure of the district and the reportage piece, everything that's happening in a school can't be and should not be board sanctioned. It's not. I mean, we're not in the schools. We're not in that chain of command. So if you're making an appearance, you're making an appearance, unless specifically assigned, you're making an appearance as a single board member, not as representing the group. And I think that's the way this reads, is that you have to be representing the whole board. The best example of that, besides the ones I mentioned, would be when we are indeed conferring diplomas. Then you're actually representing the full board. And we actually do kind of coordinate that. It's a quasi-assignment for sure, because somebody has to be there. So right now, the request about compensation, or at least I shouldn't say that, it's a request to have a conversation about it. I think that the protocol should stand and the current practice should stand, unless until we want to change the protocol in section 147. Council?
Yeah, there's two sections that relate here. One is the bylaws that relates to the compensation of board members, and then the second is in board policy 6231. The board provides, as it is allowed to by Ohio Revised Code, for a fund to pay expenses that are actually incurred by board members in the performance of it. That's the language.
Yeah, and is that the annual appropriation thing?
It's annually appropriated at the January organizational meeting, and for the last several years, the board has appropriated $25,000 for board members.
And I, as a person that's been on finance a really long time, I'm ashamed to say I had no idea that paragraph was part of that policy. I think it's kind of ridiculous.
The 6231?
Yeah. Because, I mean, you're talking about the appropriations.
Right.
For the district. And then they're talking about our trust fund. I don't know if that's for the confusion or if that's sort of just, it seems like some of that should, I don't think you should put the little trust fund together or whatever, or the 25,000 or in that same thing. I know it's an annual appropriation, but
it may make more sense in the bylaws section.
I think it would.
Okay.
And it might, if you think so, Mr. Chairman, it might be less confusing to have that there. I mean,
move it to
move that one section to the keep the other annual stuff.
Right.
That appropriation piece has to be there.
Well, yeah, the trust. I think it makes sense in that, particularly that it's dealing directly with us and belongs in board bylaw. I mean, it makes sense to me.
Okay.
I'll do it for next meeting.
I also concur with everything Ms. Bolton said regarding reimbursement. I think that's a tricky line. I'm no attorney, I'm no legal expert, but like unless I'm representing everybody here, I mean I'd feel strange about getting any kind of compensation. Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Hey, Mr. Morosky, can I get perspective?
Yeah.
I mean, my thought is I know Kareem has some perspective on this, and so if it's possible to have this on the next month agenda, just so she can get a chance to get her perspective.
Totally.
I don't know that. The other thing, and you all can take or leave this advice, but my thought was that it could be nice to do some benchmarking against other school districts, and maybe OSBA is one way to do this. But just like if our current policy is in line with best practice, I don't think we should change it. I just have no idea, like if other school districts do this differently or not. And one thought was to explore that a little bit, but it's not something I feel incredibly strongly about.
No, I think it's sound, to revisit this with Dr. Moffitt. And I had spoken to her before this meeting because I know that she had, opinions about it and said she said she was going to send me some language that I said I would read out loud at the meeting, but then she said she didn't need to. So I'm not going to. But I mean, I'm fine with leaving this back on the agenda, but also if general counsel is okay with it, bringing a revised version of 6231 with that piece in the bylaws. I mean, I don't think that negates further conversation though. So I think it's a point well taken, President Lindy.
And I think delaying it or tabling it temporarily is good as long as we make that other change. I think the OSBA piece is fine. The one thing I would worry about benchmarking against other districts is, again, we would have to, as a board, have our discussion about philosophically, board members very much involved with individual schools or on as a practice is confusing to use this term, chain of command. Because you can go to a school and you can say, God, this is great, you're a super principal, and not know, rightfully so, that person is actually under review. And then the person says, oh, well, so-and-so board member really thought I was hot stuff. So I don't want us to lose, especially now, as we are trying to bolster the structure. I think philosophically there's some issues to talk about, too much involvement with particular schools, or a regular appearance that you're at the school level. So that would be a philosophical piece I'd like to have a discussion with, because I'm pretty sure that's pretty old school, but no pun intended, but it's confusing.
Mm-hmm. All right, great. So we will bring that back next month. And Ms. Pat Bruckner, who is watching this meeting from afar, if we can log that on for agenda for next month, Pat, that'd be great. And then we will move on to policy 1411, whistleblower.
Yes, thank you. We were asked, I think now 2 meetings ago, to view the whistleblower policy, which while had close fidelity to what is in the Ohio Revised Code and statute, was not either well written or really it didn't share, I think, our values here, and so tried to rewrite that in a way that was more applicable to CPS. Folks can see the proposed change. Again, I think it's still consistent, certainly, with the statutory protections that whistleblowers have, but also relates that any violations of the law, any violations of board policy, financial irregularity, ethical violations, misuse of funds, conflicts of interest, health risks, that it's an expectation to be reported. It also gives a variety of options in terms of who to report to. Of course, in general, these reports, I think, should be made to an immediate supervisor, but where that supervisor fails to respond, it proposes, or I'm proposing that the reports can be made to the Office of the Superintendent, the Office of General Counsel, or the district's internal auditor, all of whom are empowered to investigate and respond to alleged misconduct. Shared this draft with the internal auditor, and he agrees and approves. Glad to answer any questions.
I will ask Ms. Bolton if she has any questions.
Yes, thanks for revisiting this and making this so much better, and it is so much better. I would like maybe these suggestions or possible violations or misconduct. I think the safety piece probably needs to be pulled out separately in these times. Somebody's perpetually leaving the door open so that their kid can get in, or they can unload for the picnic, or somebody's using the back door off of the back parking lot because they tend to be late, or they want to just hit the bell. So I would like us to pull the safety piece out here. And I think, I don't know if theft of time does that take care of somewhere? Is that?
We could add it, or
it seemed like it was included somewhere, but I think things have to be specific. I said the theft of time, plus I thought safety should be pulled out separately, because not just health and safety, but safety, especially during these times. I think, and I think I would be in the minority everywhere on this one, but I think reporting to a supervisor is where whistleblowing dies. because the person that's doing the reporting has no idea whether or not that supervisor has done what they needed to do, unless that person has to, in writing or somehow, assure them. And I think, people, again, I'm into the chain of command piece, so I understand why it would be supervisor. But I think we should use our internal auditor more in this effort. It's like we have one place you call about bullying, and there's some degree of anonymity. When you report to a supervisor, having been a union president, if you're reporting to a supervisor, you don't have a lot of confidence. You really don't, because it might be their friend, it might be somebody that's lateral to them. If we could just think a little bit more about what's the requirement for that supervisor. That supervisor has to report it, has to act on it. Just like if we see somebody a kid that's been hurt or we think has been abused, there's a zero tolerance for failing to do that. So maybe the person reporting has at least some confidence.
Well, my question would be along those lines. I circled that part of that section as well.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't necessarily where you were going with it. My question would be, and I see what you're saying, though, and it makes sense to me. So you're not alone in that. But my question would be then, where does it end? So if it is the supervisor, which I think could be fine. This is a different way of saying what you said. Where does it end then? If it goes to the supervisor, then what is the end result? And maybe putting that in writing, and then the supervisor does X, Y, or Z, and then it goes to bed. Is it a bully button for employees? What is it?
Does it go to the internal auditor?
Does it go to the internal auditor? Does it go to Dan? Who's it go to?
Yeah, exactly.
I guess that's it.
I think that's it, and that would be at least so that you're not saying it has to go immediately to the internal auditor or something or whatever. But
that could become the Wild
But
West.
that's, yes. Yeah, that could be crazy and a misuse of her time. The other part of this, and I feel kind of strongly about this, is that over here on that second page, it says that the report may also be made to the Board of Education. And I'm okay with may, but having lived through some stuff last year, stuff that I knew was going on, and I was able to report some stuff to general counsel, and that worked well. But I know that board members were not generally informed about certain things that were happening, and that's the superintendent. Even in executive session, that's the superintendent's decision. But I honestly think if a whole board knows some things, because it wasn't my place to bring it before the board, if indeed the administration wasn't going to do it. I think it might have changed history a little bit if some people knew some more stuff. But I also don't want it to be a gab session or a let's tattle on everybody. But I don't like this. We may know or we may not know. There's stuff that the board doesn't know, which is great. But I'm concerned about that. So I don't know if it's the level of whatever's been reported or the superintendent who gets to decide that, or it's also this weird relationship that the board has with this outstanding general counsel that we have. General counsel reports to superintendent, and it sort of has a dual report to us. So there's some things structurally, as the new superintendent is trying to figure out how this place works and do the good stuff and get rid of the crappy stuff, that we have to. It's at the top too.
Okay.
So I don't know if there's any direction there, Mike, but.
Well, I think there's enough direction to maybe add few revisions, Mr. Hoyne, you think? We can bring it back next month and look at it again?
I can. Can I ask one clarifying question? Your point about pulling out safety, it's well taken. Your thought is to have it as another bullet, an emphasized bullet.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is a problem. We are not using our metal detectors where we have them. We are not. It sounds like the new superintendent is going to be staffing based upon entrances and whatever. We have to be able to assure the public that their children are safe.
Got it.
The little ones or the teens.
And semantically speaking, in this like weird post-COVID or in COVID, whatever world we're in, health and safety, I feel when we put them together, people think pandemic. And I think we're talking about safety,
That's
guns,
right.
violence. And
Right.
I know I do, at least. When I hear health and safety, I think COVID, masks, vaccines. So,
Yeah, it kind of diminishes both of them.
yeah. No, totally, it does. I think it does.
Like that. You know, we've had talk about guns. You know, there are some staff members that have a gun in their car on school grounds. And there are some staff members that, you know, smoke on school. People need to really treasure.
Hey, even Mike, can
you walk on
you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I apologize. I'm having some real connectivity issues. When it's relevant, I have a question, but I really didn't want to interrupt anybody.
Okay, well, it'll be a few seconds, I think.
Yeah, I just think that that somehow on this, the whistleblower thing, believe it or not, I see it as a way of saying that there's a sanctity to the school campus.
I think that's right.
There's a sanctity. You have to behave a particular way, whether you're a kid or a grown-up. You have to be, you know, as we talk about, we get into the ethical piece and what have you. I just think that this can be a really fundamental thing, that you have a responsibility that we're all doing the right thing always.
How do we feel about getting to Mr. Linney and then moving on with our chunky agenda? I love it. No, this is great. We have some good stuff today. Mr. Lindy, question?
Yeah,
President Lindy?
If the reception is okay.
Yeah.
And you may have addressed this when I was having trouble connecting. To what extent has Ironetta and the administration informed this current proposal or not? I didn't hear that part and I wasn't sure.
That to me?
I would imagine. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. We will make sure that she reviews the draft before it comes back next month. It's been shared with the internal auditor.
Dan, that sounds great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, Ben, when counsel and assistant counsel are sitting here, I am assuming the administration is here.
All right, we'll move on to number 4, 4210, classified employee ethics. Mr. Hoying, what you got? Excuse me. Another totally rewritten one.
At least revised.
Yeah, at least revised. I don't know. This red line is pretty. It looks pretty rewritten.
Maybe, but it's shorter.
It is a little shorter.
Yes.
I hope it makes a little more sense. This is 3210. So there's a 4210 also that's classified employee ethics, which we're recommending to rescind because it's duplicative. We are now down to about a half a dozen classified employee policies. We'll have them combined certainly by the end of the year, the next couple of months here. There's a couple that we put a pin in that we'll have to come back to as well.
Uh-oh.
Yes. This is, again, our ethics policy. Again, I think the previous language, I think it had not been reviewed since 2009. We tried to update it with sort of, I think, what our current understanding of ethics is. But again, the sentiment is the same, just hopefully updated and I hope improved a bit. Glad to answer any questions about this.
I do not have questions about this. Ms. Bolton?
I have a couple simple ones.
Yep.
Is this one of those where we can, in the policy as it is posted, do the linkage?
To the professional conduct code?
Yeah, and
certainly.
then Ohio ethics, whatever. Yeah.
Yep.
I think that would be good for people to be able to see rather than
Yep.
trying to search. It's not like posted in the boiler room or anything.
Nope.
So the other thing is the school on school property, school and district property.
Yep.
And then I wanted to see, non-school and non-district purposes.
Same. Yep.
I think the only thing I was going to add, I'm glad we got the partisan politics thing in there. I wanted to know about the reference to testing.
Sure.
As part of one of the letters or something.
We can add that, certainly.
Because again, that's going to be increasingly significant as we, tend to reemphasize post-COVID and post whatever else we've been through, as Mike said. Because that's, people lose their license for that.
Yep.
They do. So sort of a testing / academic honesty for professionals.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yep.
And then is there a last thing about that? I know we have other policies about misuse of technology.
Yep, we do.
I just think that might
Maybe a cross-reference here.
that would be great.
Are you good on that, Ms. Bolton?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We'll plan to bring that back as well. One more.
Yeah, I think
quick
that's
review.
right. I think that's right.
Great.
And in light of that, too, the next one I know Dr. Moffitt was interested in having on the agenda, and again, she's not here. I think we're all interested in having this on the agenda, the Prohibition on Harassment, Intimidation, and Bullying.
Yeah.
But I believe that was placed here specifically by her a couple meetings ago, and then again for this one. So I would like to, Ms. Bruckner, I know you're listening, I would like to keep agenda item number 5 on the agenda for next month. That being said, since it's here now, is there any update from General Counsel on this, or comments from Ms. Bolton, or anything while we have it on policy 5517.01? I don't think there is, probably from y'all.
Not from us, no.
Ms. Bolton, anything you would like to talk about now before we revisit it next month?
I think we should revisit it next month, but I do have a question. The committees are meeting in July?
So I'm so glad you asked that question. When I say next month, I believe I'm referring to August.
My only concern about all that is if we don't meet, that means that these may not be available for the start of school. And I'm just wondering how we take care of that, because the harassment thing and whatever.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you this, if we would like to suggest, so July 15th would be our normal cadence, of course. And I will be away with my family, but we could schedule a meeting for July 29th if you wanted to. I'm fine with that. And then we could see if Dr. Moffitt can make it as well. And assuming y'all can. It's right at the end of July, so give everyone pretty much all of July. But it's certainly before our next one would be August 19th, I think.
Yeah. School's already.
Yeah, so we could do July 29th if
I think these things are important.
I do
to
too.
have in place,
I agree.
not just because it's another school year, but
I agree.
we've 1 year past COVID. We
I agree.
New superintendent. There's a whole bunch of whatever.
I agree. All right. Well, let's do July 29th, and I will make sure that Dr. Moffitt knows about that, and we can revisit it. If that's the case, we're going to move on.
Thank you.
Great. This was also a Dr. Moffitt, I believe, but I know it doesn't look like there's comments from General Counsel, but I'll open it up, as always, to my colleague, Ms. Bolton. Social media for district employees, which is 9125. I only have, I think, a comment for now.
No, you go, because I'm.
Okay. My only comment, this is a very minimal comment too, is whether or not we need to update, I don't know if we do, whether or not we need to update like the lists of social media accounts the district has. And it's pretty basic comment.
Yeah, actually, I
but
had some notes on that too. I think that's probably expanded since this was drafted the first time.
I would-
Just making sure that was up to
I would
date.
sure as heck hope so, because that is super irrelevant stuff for kids. Kids aren't looking at any of that crap. I mean, so it's kind of like the BlackBerry we found when we were looking
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
BlackBerry.
back.
Although I think a lot of this, the district social media is kind of geared towards parents a lot of times.
Yeah.
The marketings, which I think this is in reference to primarily, but
Well,
we
I hate
will
to-
double check.
Hate to break it to all of us, but a lot of parents are also in their early 20s now and don't care about any of this stuff either.
Very true.
It's hard for me to admit. I'm old for a new parent. I'm going to be the oldest parent.
My parents were
42 when I changed. My dad was 40.
the luckiest kid in the world.
Yeah, I have more wisdom now.
Yes, you do.
I've made more mistakes. I've made way more mistakes. Yeah. Okay. So shelf.
Yeah, I didn't have any comments except I'm glad it was brought up, and I'm glad we're. Did we have to shelf this one? Was this one that?
Social media.
I thought it was only the kid one, but not.
It might have. You know what? It might have only been the kid one, which is awesome, and I love it. But I say we shelf it anyway.
Sounds
yeah,
good.
I think
I'm
she wanted
happy
to.
to.
Yeah, and we'll just talk about them as a package deal.
You got it.
I would like to comment.
So those three are getting shelved.
I think so.
Okay, cool.
I would like to comment briefly, though, and if Ms. Bowen, if you have anything too, that's great. If not, totally fine. I just want to comment briefly, and I'll have more next month, on the proposed 9126 social media for students. I think it is awesome, and I think it is awesome, Ms. Scott, that we even have this. I've been sharing with anybody who will listen to me, which is not too many people, but the few that do. When we found out that 90% or whatever of our discipline referrals were from social media, I shouldn't say I was surprised, but that's a shocking amount. That is shocking. Like, it's not just and there's still other discipline thing, but the fact that 90% were related somehow to social media, I think was actually shocking. I don't think people will be like, oh yeah, a lot of it's. So this is great. So we'll talk. I think we'll dive into it next month. But thank you.
I also think it justifies a conversation, a community conversation. As the superintendent is talking about a community conversation about safety sometime in August or whatever. I think the safety piece is great to have the conversation about, but this is the real problem. This is actually impacting not only behavior in the future or whatever with these kids, but it's impacting as well instruction.
Yeah.
This has ruined the school day and the school hour. I will testify in that, and I've been out of the classroom a long time, but still have those folks. It's almost impossible to teach with this kind of stuff going on, because all the things that are happening, group dynamics, before, after, and in the classroom, and the phones are there, and you can't patrol it. This we have to come up. This is good, by the way, very good.
It is.
I just think it's a community conversation to suggest to the superintendent. I think the people in the know need to have a real conversation about how they're going to, as the school year starts, police this. That's why it's important to have it in place, or whatever, because it varies from school to school, from classroom to classroom, teacher to teacher. The ones that try to enforce stuff, and then the teacher's placed in the position of tattling on the kid, and then you break that relation. This needs to be dealt with. But I was glad that Dr. Moffitt brought it to our attention.
Yeah.
I just add that it's another example of sort of a CPS policy that it's not like that Stephanie, when she was researching this, cut and paste this from another district. It's
right on.
I try to take credit for her work as often as possible. She does a terrific job.
It's far superior
to your
yours.
effort.
No, she does a really good job. Still probably would benefit from some comment, but really a unique policy again.
That's great.
Just to be old, I will recall that the first few years I was on the board, back, while things were like forever, there was this effort by the board, and certainly by the administration, for us to buy a package of policies. Mm. And to her credit, Kathy Ingram, and there were two of us that were afraid of her, so we agreed with her, fought that good fight. And that was even one of the defining things of the 4-3 split on that earliest board, was whether or not, whether or not we would have a package. Spades was into that. It was a package deal. Do it. And just the policy queen. I always smile when she would say that. Like, I'm not too sure. But yes, those people produce these, what do you call it? Boilerplate, off the shelf crap. And we have our own policy.
Yes, we do.
That was a big fight. And it took an election to change not because of that reason, but as a result of that election, we went back to writing our own policies, which I think is great.
Well, if I had a nickel for every time I got a phone call or an email or a LinkedIn message about, can you send me a copy of fill in the blank policy that is unique to us, especially in the past couple years.
Right.
Yes.
Coinciding, unsurprisingly, with the arrival of Stephanie Scott.
Yes.
Before.
Nobody wanted them.
A remarkable
No, this is a good team. Everybody can give high fives around here. This is a good team.
Yeah.
Yep.
We just have one no vote.
Good team.
Yes, it is.
One no vote. All right. So, and now another nice big thing, and this is we have property inventory, and that is that a couple different ones? No.
It's
two. It's these two.
Two separate policies coming out of
Yeah.
finance
Yeah.
because
Yep.
finance and actually the treasurer reasserted her position that the policies regarding finance go to finance first and then go to policy
It's perfect.
for the last look. It
Yes.
doesn't mean we have to rubber stamp it.
That's right.
It just means that the people that the treasurer knows best about this stuff.
Yep.
So that, yes, if you want to take those two up, they can do those pretty quickly.
Let's do it.
On 7455, is there a reason that the capital and asset was yellowed?
I was going to defer to you on as a member of the finance committee. I do have some notes. These came straight from treasurer.
Yeah.
I was going to bring them up.
Check your notes on capital. I think I know what she's talking about, but that would be good. And then over on the back under property control, while you're looking that up, to maintain control over district property, the treasurer in cooperation with other district personnel shall develop. I just think that's kind of purposely general, but what does that actually mean? Is it relevant or district personnel or particular personnel? Is it because there's some separation always between the treasurer's office and the procurement people. I think that's just a little too generic. And it might just be one word.
Yeah. So capital, I understand, is just clarifying language and
Right,
making
cool.
it. And direct me to where you are on the
Second paragraph, second page, to maintain control over district property.
Oh, got it here. In cooperation with other district personnel, and your question was whether or not that includes
Yeah, there's some stuff that she can't really, there can't be that cooperation necessarily. But I just, relevant personnel, or is there some other?
With respect to the purchase, transfer, disposal of fixed assets, I mean, there certainly are other district personnel involved in.
Yes, absolutely.
Our office is involved, the facilities office.
As needed or?
Sure, gotcha.
Something.
As needed?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I would only say this as an add, is that report, kind of in the name of equity, the property report probably should be shared with the board biannually, not necessarily annually, or some kind of, because I don't know that we've ever seen it as a whole board. We see some of it occasionally in finance as part of the minutes, but people should know a little bit more about our property. And actually, property has a lot to do with equity, whether it's the fixed assets, the buildings, or whatever.
Sure.
So I think that should be, I don't know if you can work the equity in there, but then if you did all that, I'm ready for that to be done.
To pass it on? Yeah, if you can do this. I mean, these are kind of no-brainers. And if you could just do me a favor and make this all the same font and the same size, because it's freaking me out. And then I'm good. But yeah, no, this is a no-brainer type of stuff. I appreciate the work finance and the treasurer did on all of it, and I will just second quite adamantly your piece about the equity. I mean,
Yes.
we had that conversation time and time again when we were talking about where we were going to move Gamble and the difference between Gamble and Clark, which there really isn't a tremendous amount except their facility, and the kids at Gamble weren't getting the same, opportunities. So yeah, that's all.
And so do work in the
So, yeah, if you
especially
can, yeah.
if, we do seem to have almost a majority on the board, I think. It sounds like people wanting to kind of reconsider the configuration of programming and noticing the latest recommendation from superintendent and a hire that looks like diversify the programming. So that's learning in place is critical. On the other one, the only thing I saw on 7450 again was re-emphasizing the importance of property, but I didn't know, do we need to reference liens? Maybe that's the little county recorder in me or something. Or the legal status of property. You kind of refer to it here, the description and identification, source, year of acquisition. Mm-hmm. We have all that.
We do, and actually we don't mortgage or put liens on property in the same way that you would as a private, but we do have COPS arrangements and things like that, due to participation. So yeah, we could reference that as well here.
Oh, I had.
So are we good with passing these on to the full board then? Once we get just a couple, yeah. I think it's great. Thanks, Dan.
You're welcome.
I'm going to turn to President Lindy, see if he has any comments just on, past few things we've been talking about.
Mike, can you hear me okay?
Okay.
Can you?
Oh, there he is.
Hey, I was just going to say I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. No problem. Okay, so policy 7455, that was the accounting systems of fixed assets. Mm-hmm. That was okay. So we're good. So number 10 is a interesting and great, I think, agenda item. Number 10 is official definitions of equity published by and passed by board action. Ms. Bolton, of course, was here and a leader on the the only 2255 equity and excellence in education. And so I am going to defer to her for this agenda item.
Did we do all the other ones?
We did, believe it or not.
Why do I have dress?
Oh, there's these other business.
Those are the
new policies.
New policy stuff.
Oh,
like
sorry.
you were at the end.
Okay, good. Oh, gotcha.
You're good. Yeah, no problem.
This is perpetual, and it happens. I've seen it happen with now since the equity policy. Say 3 superintendents, but in one of our meetings, treasurer mentioned some of the new ways of building a budget and whatever, and mentioned that the superintendent and she, had good discussion about equity and and the distribution of resources, and then said something that I keep hearing all the time is equity for one person is not equity for the other. That is the mantra of at least 3 administrations in this school district. And I think it's part of the reason we have not progressed as much as we need to since 2016, 17 or something. When indeed we brought this equity idea back from NSBA and we spent a significant amount of time writing this thing. The board, in its own way, and I was thrilled that Vice President Jones said, no, it's not this or that, it's this. Well, the definition of equity is in this policy in this district. I don't care how many other textbooks anybody wants to go to or how many other professional development places people want to go to. The district's definition and insight to equity is this policy. And this policy is a roadmap. Mm-hmm. You could look at this policy, very frankly, because it's it's too specific. It's much more, in the weeds, so to speak, but we felt we needed to because everybody, whether it's discipline records or whatever, I mean, any good bureaucracy is going to try to keep this from necessarily happening in a bold way, because this is it. So my point is, in this district, we especially, it may not have been true long ago, but the starting point for the administration should be the policy. That's in everything, especially as we've tried to keep things up to date. That's where you start. It's not where you go back and it's not like, oh, let's check and see if we can do that. It's in the contract. Policy is the starting point. And for equity, this stuff is tremendously outlined. And then, Dan, thanks for emphasizing the board resolution adopting working definitions for diversity, equity, inclusion, and excellence in education. Just to emphasize. I think we need to next month or whenever, or next few months, this policy committee needs to be talking about what's in this. Because I think the racism policy, rightfully so, has overtaken the immediate interest. But this actually is racism policy is very specific too, about what to do.
It is, yeah.
So I just really want us to be able to say in the full board, look at these two policies, or definitely look at this one if you want a definition for equity. And Madam Superintendent, Madam Treasurer, you want a definition of equity, it's here.
If I may, and one, there's a couple comments. One is, to your point, the anti-racism policy and this both kind of, I hate to use the term, get down in the weeds, but they do maybe a little more than some of our other policies.
Absolutely.
Certainly the anti-racism one is far more prescriptive than a lot of our policies. That's probably a better word, as is this. The main difference between the two, I mean, besides the ideological differences, one is speaking specifically the disparity between black and white students. This one is speaking for everybody in totality, right?
Absolutely.
So, in that aside, the major difference I see, and I hear this too, and I'm glad, I kind of knew why this was on here, but I wasn't entirely sure, and I'm glad that it's on here for the reason I thought it was, which is I hear the same thing you do, that this document, 2255, in my opinion, directs budgetary decisions more so than 2256. Now, 2256 does as well. We have a DEI office. We're going to have an officer who's going to have a pretty high-level position in the superintendent cabinet. So that one does too. This, and maybe this is Pollyanna, I think most of it has been beaten out of me, but this to me is like a roadmap for how to budget. And the piece in here, and this will lead me to my last comment, the piece in here that is most significant in that regard that doesn't ever happen is the last sentence. The Cincinnati Public Schools Equity Plan will be submitted annually to the board for approval, and its subsequent implementation by all departments and school sites will be reviewed by the board at least semi-annually. And I've been on this board. This was passed a year and a half before I joined this board, and that has never happened. And so I think calling attention to that piece will help address maybe some of the other pieces. And I think it's something that I'm prepared and willing to be bullish about. And it's in the minutes now. Thank you, Ms. Bruckner, that we could maybe talk about and see. And I think going forward, and I'm not calling anyone out at all, by the way.
No.
I'll call ourselves out as much. It's our job to
Yes.
ask for this stuff, But I think right now, and then I will shut up, to your point, I think right now there is an appetite from the Board of Education, the new superintendent, from the administration, to let's go back to it. Thank you for putting it on the agenda. I'm done. I think this was the right time.
I agree, and
Mike, can I get something in there?
I think it's
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead, President Lindy.
No, I was just going to say, if you remember, we gave the equity policy and the anti-racism policy to the candidates during the superintendent search to look at and respond to. So I co-signed the conversation.
Right. Thank you, President Lindy. I think it's time. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, and I'd like for us to talk about it the next time. too, and maybe
Sure.
the next 2 or 3 times.
Great.
But I do applaud Vice President Jones for saying that in that meeting. No, not really. There's equity. We've defined it. I would say where, but I don't think I'm allowed to say that. It was an executive session that this came up. And so appreciate her saying that, because that's just this is it. This is it, especially now when you have so many of our kids, whether they're gay or whatever, they're under attack. Our international students. This does speak to all of our children.
Yes.
And it does tell the grown-ups what they're supposed to be focusing.
Yes.
So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bolton. I know Ms. Bolton at least has an other business item, but I'm going to kick it to General Counsel first for these few policies that we have in front of us, beginning with 32. We have 3213, Student Supervision and Welfare, 3214, Employee Gifts, and 3216, Employee Dress and Grooming. We are going through our 3000 series, and I will kick it over to Mr. Hoying.
Get it.
Thank you. Yeah, 3 policies that we updated. You started with 3213. I'll bring that up on the screen. 3213 is Student Supervision and Welfare. Again, there's a similar and duplicative policy in the classified employees, which we're recommending rescinding. Updated this with some language, first to clarify that it doesn't just apply to professional employees, it applies to all CPS employees. There was sort of a confusing sentence related, a professional employee shall provide proper instruction in safety matters. I think what that relates to is that we show students how to safely do whatever we're working on, whether that's a chemistry lab or the proper safety measures involved in football practice or whatever. So sort of tried to clarify that. Mostly this is just an updating, but this is Student Supervision and Welfare. I'm glad to answer your questions on
Ms. Bolton?
Is should a stronger word than will? The person that spent time teaching after the school day, but still on school grounds, the theater program. It's not like they should do it. You have to.
Oh, got it. Shall.
Yeah, shall. That's critical. And I mean, those are dangerous things. The kids aren't just sitting in a chair.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a weird sentence.
We'll update that.
That would be great. Also, do we get it? We mentioned that people shouldn't be transporting kids, right?
So there's a line in here. Let's find that on the screen as well. But employees shall not transport students in private vehicles without the approval of the principal or following any established procedures. I agree with that. We've had circumstances where it obviously was the safer choice to transport a student in a private vehicle. But in general, that's not something they should be doing with principals.
And then again, this is old school, that when you have activities, I am reminded on a terrible snow day, district-wide, and I was here late too because I didn't want to get out on the streets. I can remember Superintendent Blackwell her light was on, so I stopped in, and she wasn't leaving that desk until the last kid had been transported home.
Mm-hmm.
For those people that have extracurricular or tutoring or whatever, and this has become more significant because of our transportation problem. Thank you, Metro Sora. That if you're in charge of those kids, you have to be there until they're gone. Period. And that's not happening everywhere. And those kids especially, have to wait on the bus. There has to be some sort of expectation.
We felt the pain. We felt the pain of that this school year too.
Yes. Yes.
Not as much pain as the young, but yes, that needs to, yes.
That's a responsibility.
Yes.
It's safety.
Agreed.
Yes. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so we can call that. If we call that out, let me ask Ms. Bolton this. If we call that out, that specifically in here, can we pass this forward for approval?
Mhm.
Yeah, and the should to shall, and then we'll move
Yep.
on. Cool, I agree. Great. 3214, employee gifts.
That's right. So this is a matter again, sort of employee ethics. Well, it's a policy that's a bit relates to two different things. One, with respect to gifts to employees from parents. So there's a mention of that. The more important piece from my end is the sort of Ohio ethics law implications of accepting gifts from a possible vendor, and how that can interfere with making the best choices for CPS. So that's the piece that's the most important to me, but there is some reference here as well to classroom gifts and things like that. I'll bring that up on the screen as well, and then I'm glad to answer your questions.
Is that language, Dan? Substantial and improper influence on the employee. Is that ethics stuff, Ohio ethics stuff?
That's straight from the Ohio ethics laws.
Just timely,
Yeah.
considering the news.
Yeah, there you go. The only thing, the lead sentence, if that's all that anybody ever reads, all of our parents would be saying, screw you.
Yeah.
Don't forget that. And I'll tell you, if you're teaching kindergarten, you're getting 32 gifts.
Right.
It's just the way it is. So is it a matter of, we have to have this policy, and it's the vendor piece is most important, and certainly weird things can happen about gifts if you're worrying about class standing, or if you're going to write a recommendation for somebody, you could be getting all kinds of help from parents, and we've seen that play out. So something has to be there, but could you make a better first sentence?
I can. I wanted to get. I have no real opinion on this part because parents are not vendors of the district. So this is not the ethical. I wanted to get your sentiment on it before I rewrote it. So
the babies are going to be given their kindergarten teachers presents.
It's not an expectation or something along those lines.
However you can word it, because they'll say, well, that's not even humane. But indeed, when you get to the high school level or whatever, you could be seeing some weird stuff on college acceptance and whatever. I never experienced that at Wyoming High School. I never experienced, but I heard that was true in other places.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okey-dokey. Well,
Good.
good.
Move that forward.
Pass forward. Moving forward. Here we go. And then my personal favorite, an issue I take very seriously. It's very serious to me.
Yeah,
I wore my formal shoes to my meeting with the mayor.
I am so impressed.
This is policy 3216, employee dress and grooming. Why is everyone laughing at me?
Look great.
Thank
You
you.
look wonderful.
I am abiding by communicating to students of pride and personal appearance in my own special
Yes,
way.
you
All right,
are.
sorry, Mr. Hoying.
Yeah. So
Tell us about this, Dan, with a pinstripe shirt.
He always
Tie.
looks really good, though. He does. He does.
The employee dress and grooming, a policy that again, there's a classified version which we're recommending rescinding. I made no other adjustments. It does appear as well in our employee handbook. I will say that it's a matter that has come up before in collective bargaining as well with the unions.
Well, they just totally reject this.
This is language that in general we've been. I mean, I know there's in general that this has not gotten a lot of objection from the union.
Because they don't abide by it.
This has been
very simple.
This has been where we've reached some agreement. So obviously, if there's large changes the board has an interest in making, there is some bargaining implications to that as well. But this is language that, for the most part, both the employer and our union groups have been willing to abide by. I have no other comments on it. Glad to take your questions.
It hasn't changed since 2009,
No,
even in the collective bargaining agreement stuff.
It has not.
So the only recommendation here is just excising the word professional.
And rescinding, I think it's 4216 also.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, sure.
The only two things I'd say is that it should be something that there is nothing political or offensive on one's clothing.
Offensive, I agree with. The political, there's been.
That if we're not allowed to do political because of the
Yeah.
Constitution, I'm
Right.
heavy on the Constitution, but
offensive.
people wearing something that is offensive.
Now, and you want to call that out specifically? You don't think it's covered in, like, say, I don't know, B or any of these? No, you want to call it out specific?
No, because some people think that sharing their views about whatever or something sexist on a shirt. So I don't know what you call that. We don't need to say political, and I'm in favor of that. Well, that's kind of weird for whatever. But I mean, you want Proud Boys to come in?
No.
Okay. You want them to have Proud Boys? Is that political, or is that social, or is that offensive? You want something weird on a T-shirt that says something nasty about girls or boys or gay kids?
No, I don't want any of that.
You have to not be a billboard. And also the uniforms. Great many of our classified people have uniforms.
They do.
So I think that needs to be addressed. That's their proper.
Hey, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Dan, what's the Tinker standard?
Substantially disruptive to the school environment, I believe, is or something.
I'm just wondering, is there some like, because I think that what's behind Eve's point is like it can't, like, there, you get to have some free speech rights, sure. You just can't have things that take attention away from the school being a school.
I think if it's okay with the committee, I'd like to look at this a little bit and maybe bring back some proposed language. I agree on the uniforms. That's easy. We can put that in, but maybe some language that meets your expectation, but is also we're comfortable.
If I might, I would just add a bit disruptive to the school piece. I think that's critical. That's critical. But what happens is that it might not disrupt. That's enforcement. And some teacher might say, well, my class wasn't disrupted, but boy, the two kids sitting next to that person were very disruptive. So I think the individual response has to be part of that. If we're trying to make our schools safe and we're trying to reduce the heat, so to speak, of everybody having an opinion and being mean, there's no reason to be mean.
Okay. So we'll bring this back in July 29th. And Dr. Moffitt can make that date. I've confirmed that since we've been here. So we'll meet July 29th at 9 a.m. right here. And then to close out, I assume we have no hearing speakers because Ben is the only person watching. So if I'm right, am I right with that, Rob? No speakers? Oh, they haven't. Oh, I thought the one attendee was Ben. Okay. No. Okay. So I'm sorry about that, guys. Other business. Ms. Bolton, I think you said you had something to bring.
A very quick one. I've gotten a couple of calls, and this speaks to the policies work as it pertains to
Mm-hmm.
5256,
Yep.
LSDs, and this is maybe a request to the administration, needing more help or more guidance on creating their subcommittees regarding race and racism.
Oh.
That some of them actually have been working at the end of the year and into the summer and seeking more guidance from the administration. Not any more guidance from us, but that would be cool. And I don't know how to give that to them if it's training or what have you, but they're having trouble. And I didn't know that goes right now to till whatever, Mrs. Murphy and to Amy. So there's just needing, and I know they're going to be reaching out to her as well, but that has come from, I think, 3 schools actually that are taking it pretty seriously.
That's great.
That's it. That's all my other was.
Great. I do not have any other business. To deference President, Mr. President, you have any other business? No? Okay. Ms. Bruckner, do you have any other business?
Mike, I'm good. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. You're fine. No apologies. Ms. Bruckner, are you good?
I am good, thank you. Well, I do have one quick question for clarification on the equity. On the equity, is that moving? What was the action on that? Is that just going to be on the agenda for the next few policy committee meetings?
That's correct.
Got it.
Thank you.
In the minutes, should we just ask members to review that policy? Or are we we're not gonna discuss it.
We can put that in the minutes, Ms. Bruckner. Yeah, I was going to certainly emphasize it when I report them. But yeah, we can put that in the minutes as well, Ms. Bruckner. You know, suggestion to the members to refamiliarize
There you go.
with 2255. Yeah, I thought that's who that was. Hey!
Hey!
Good. I was talking about you. You're crashing. We're about to end. We'll adjourn. You can come in and we can hang out. All right, we got, we're going
But we
to.
have an other, though. We have another.
We have another?
We have an other. Report what's happening Monday at Aiken.
The Aiken family.
Oh, really?
The Aiken family's in town.
The Aiken family's coming?
Wow.
What
Yeah.
time?
We don't know that yet, but mid-morning, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very exciting.
Right on. Well, no further business. Meeting is adjourned.
Great.
I was just talking about you last